Tomorrow morning, do this. Pull into an Exxon station. Then drive to a Shell. Then hit a Chevron. Now check the prices at the pump. What do you see? They're almost identical. Maybe a few cents off, but no real difference. Now think about that. If this is a free market, if every company sets its own price, why are the prices all the same? Why doesn't one company cut prices in half? Steal every customer overnight? Why does the whole system look planned? Because what you think is competition isn't always competition. Sometimes it's consolidation, a system where a few giants control everything. And this system didn't start today. It started 150 years ago with one man. His name was John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest men in history. Adjusted for today, over $400 billion. But his biggest win wasn't money. It was the system, a blueprint, a model every major company copied later. Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, JP Morgan, Pfizer, dozens more. The world you live in today, Rockefeller's fingerprints are all over it. And the crazy part? Most people have no idea. So let's start at the beginning. 1839, a small town in New York State. That's where John Davison Rockefeller was born. His dad was a traveling salesman. People didn't trust him. Some called him a con man. His mom? Deeply religious, strict discipline, hard work, total faith in God. You see both sides in Rockefeller, cold calculation, and a belief he was doing the right thing. That combo made him unstoppable. 1859, oil is discovered in Pennsylvania. The oil rush begins. Thousands flood in to drill. Everyone thinks the money is underground. But Rockefeller saw something else. Drilling for oil? That's gambling. Strike oil today, you're rich. Come up dry tomorrow, you're broke. But refining? That was the real business. Because no matter who drilled the oil, someone had to clean it. That's the path he chose. In 1863, he invested in his first refinery in Cleveland. And over the next few years, he figured out something his rivals missed. Everyone else was just refining oil. Rockefeller was buying the whole system. This was vertical integration. Imagine you own a Starbucks. You buy coffee beans from someone, cups from someone else, delivery from another company. Everyone takes a cut. But what if you bought the coffee farm, and the packaging plant, and your own trucks? All that profit comes back to you. That's what Rockefeller did. He bought barrel factories. He bought warehouses. He built his own transport network, his own distribution. Slowly, his costs dropped below everyone else. Now, he had a weapon. He could sell cheaper than his competitors. Then came phase 2, horizontal integration. Buy your competitors, or destroy them. 1872. Historians call it the Cleveland Massacre. Rockefeller met with refinery owners one by one. He made them an offer. Sell your company to me. If they said yes, they got good money. If they said no, a price war started. Rockefeller dropped prices so low, other companies bled cash. Months later, they went bankrupt, or they sold to him anyway. In just 3 months, he controlled most of Cleveland's refineries. That's how the Standard Oil empire began. And this is the playbook the world would see again. And again. Step 1, build scale. Step 2, cut costs. Step 3, squeeze competitors. Step 4, own the market. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of US refining. This wasn't just success, this was a monopoly. But here's the twist. When you get too powerful, people turn on you. Newspapers attacked him. Journalists investigated him. The government started watching. Rockefeller knew if he did nothing, his empire would fall. But his solution changed corporate history forever. That solution was called the trust. And that's where the next chapter begins. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of America's oil refining. But now Rockefeller had a new problem. The bigger his empire grew, the angrier people got. Newspapers attacked him. Politicians called him out. Small business owners called him the most dangerous man in America. Why? Because when one company controls everything, people get scared. And that fear? It wasn't wrong. If one company controls it all, who sets the price? If no rivals are left, what choice do you have? That question was spreading across America. But here's the twist. Rockefeller had a solution. In 1882, his lawyers built something new. Something that changed corporate America forever. It was called the Standard Oil Trust. Let me break it down. Imagine you own 20 different companies. The law says you can't control them all directly. So what do? You create a new organization. You put all the company stock into it. On paper, they look separate. But real control? It's in one place. That was the trust. And that's where the modern holding company was born. Look at America's biggest companies today. You'll see the same pattern. Take Alphabet. Alphabet doesn't run a search engine. But Google is theirs. YouTube is theirs. Android is theirs. DeepMind is theirs. Dozens of companies. One roof. Same with Meta platforms. Meta isn't a social app, but Facebook is theirs. Instagram is theirs. WhatsApp is theirs. Threads is theirs. On paper, lots of companies. In reality, one control center. Sound familiar? It's not the Standard Oil Trust, but the roots go back to the same idea. One umbrella, many companies, one center of power. And that's why Rockefeller wasn't just rich, he was designing a system. By 1900, Standard Oil was the most powerful company in US history. But public pressure was exploding. Then a journalist stepped up. Her name was Ida Tarbell. She spent years investigating Standard Oil. She exposed Rockefeller's playbook, secret railroad deals, crushing competitors, price wars, market control, all of it. Her reports went nationwide. For the first time, regular Americans saw how powerful Standard Oil really was. Pressure on the government grew, and finally, the case reached the Supreme Court. 1911, a landmark decision in US history. The Supreme Court ruled, Standard Oil is an illegal monopoly. Break it up into 34 separate companies. That day, many thought Rockefeller lost. His empire was dead. But the real story was just starting, because Standard Oil was broken up. But Rockefeller's shares, they weren't. He owned pieces of almost every new company. And as those companies grew, so did his wealth. The company split. The owner got richer. It was one of the biggest corporate twists in history. So what happened to those 34 companies? That's where it gets wild. Many became the biggest oil giants on Earth. Exxon Mobil, Chevron, BP. All of them trace back to Standard Oil. The empire they broke up in 1911. Its pieces became the most powerful companies in the world. But Rockefeller's greatest legacy wasn't oil. It was this: a way to keep power. And the next chapter starts with philanthropy, donations, social work, charity. In 1913, Rockefeller started the Rockefeller Foundation. The world saw it as charity. And yes, the foundation did good work: medical research, education, public health, universities. But something else happened too. The Rockefeller family's influence grew. Now they weren't just powerful in business. They could shape education, research, and policy. And that's where modern billionaires found a new playbook. Look at America today. Bill Gates has his foundation. Mark Zuckerberg has his initiative. Warren Buffett gives billions to philanthropy. Billions of dollars. Research, public health, education, policy. So here's the question. Is this just charity? Or another form of influence? Everyone answers that differently. But one thing is certain. Rockefeller built a model, and future generations copied it. And now, 100 years later, the same story is starting again. Not in oil, in the internet. And the main character this time? A guy named Jeff Bezos. And the next chapter begins with Amazon, big tech, and the new monopolies of the digital age. The internet changed everything. Or did it? Look at your phone right now. You probably used Google today. Bought something on Amazon, scrolled Instagram. That feels like choice, like freedom. But what if it's not? Let's go back. 1994. A guy quits his job on Wall Street. He sees the future in the internet. He starts an online bookstore. His name? Jeff Bezos. The company? Amazon. At first, Amazon only sold books, then CDs, then electronics, then clothes, then home goods, then everything. But here's the twist. Amazon did exactly what Rockefeller did 100 years ago. Vertical integration. First, Amazon just sold stuff. Then it built its own warehouses. Then its own logistics centers. Then its own delivery vans. Then its own payment system. Then its own streaming service. Then its own cloud company. Slowly, Amazon wasn't just a store. It became an entire ecosystem. Think about it. You buy something on Amazon. It sits in an Amazon warehouse, managed by Amazon software, shipped in an Amazon truck, delivered by an Amazon driver, paid for through Amazon's network. One company. Total control. That's the same thinking that made Standard Oil unstoppable. But Amazon's real power isn't retail. It's Amazon Web Services. AWS. Millions of websites and apps run on AWS. Even companies that compete with Amazon use AWS. Imagine fighting Rockefeller in 1900 while using his pipelines. Rockefeller controlled oil infrastructure. Amazon controls digital infrastructure. But Amazon isn't alone. Look at Google. Billions of people use the internet, and most of them start in one place, Google. If the internet is a city, Google is the front door. The news you see, the sites you find, the videos you watch, most of it goes through Google. But Google isn't just a search engine. Google owns YouTube, Android, Google Maps, Google Chrome, Gmail, Google Cloud, the most popular digital tools in the world, all under one roof. Does that structure sound familiar? Many companies, one control center, many services, one ecosystem. Rockefeller would be smiling right now. Same principle, different products. But big tech's story doesn't end there. Look at social media. 2004. A college kid builds a website in his Harvard dorm. His name? Mark Zuckerberg. That website became Facebook. Then Facebook bought Instagram. Then WhatsApp. Then Oculus. Slowly, a new ecosystem was born. Think about your day. You text friends, share photos, watch videos, send messages. Different apps, right? But the owner might be the same company. That's modern consolidation. Many brands, one control. Many platforms, one owner. And it's not just tech. Look at America's banks. After the 2008 financial crisis, small banks vanished or got swallowed by giants. Today, a few names run the system. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, millions of savings accounts, loans, credit cards, mortgages, all tied to these institutions. So here's the question. Is this bad? Not always. Big companies bring efficiency, cheaper services, real innovation, real infrastructure. Amazon made shopping easy. Google made information easy. Facebook made communication easy. But here's the other question. What happens when a few companies get too big? What happens when competition fades? What happens when the whole market sits in a few hands? These are the same questions from 1900. when people looked at Standard Oil. And they're the same questions we ask about big tech today. The only difference? Back then it was oil. Today it's data. Back then it was pipelines. Today it's digital networks. Back then it was kerosene. Today it's information. But the principle of power? It's almost the same. And this is where it gets interesting. Because the question isn't how big companies got big. The question is, where do you stand in this system? Do you actually have choices? Does real competition even exist? And most important of all, can you even opt out? You've seen how Standard Oil changed the game. You saw the trust structure. You saw how Amazon, Google, and Meta use the same playbook today. But here's the biggest question. What does this mean for you? Because every system gets judged by one thing. How does it affect regular people? Look at your phone when you wake up. It's probably Apple or Android. Android? That's Google's ecosystem. iPhone? That's Apple's world. You search something. Google. You watch a video. YouTube. You check the map. Google Maps. You open email. Gmail. Before your day even starts. You're inside a digital empire. Now think about internet. In most of America, you don't have many choices. Some areas have Verizon, some have AT&T, some have Comcast, some have T-Mobile. Technically, options exist. But dozens of choices? No. A few giants run your whole region. That's consolidation in real life. Now look at streaming. Netflix, Disney+, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, Max. They look like different companies. But slowly, media has shrunk into a few big groups. This is the same cycle from history. First comes competition, then growth, then consolidation, then dominance, then new rivals. And the loop starts again. But here's the twist. A new player is on the field, maybe the most powerful one yet. Because it doesn't run companies directly, it owns pieces of all of them. This is where we meet the investment giants. You've heard the names. BlackRock, Vanguard Group, State Street Corporation. They don't have trillions of their own money. They manage money for investors worldwide. But because of that, they own pieces of thousands of companies. Airlines, banks, tech firms, healthcare, energy, retail, almost every major sector. Now think hard about this. Two companies look like rivals on TV, but their biggest shareholders could be the same. Does that mean they're one company? No. Is it a secret conspiracy? No. But it does mean modern capitalism is more connected than ever, and that makes it harder to understand. In Rockefeller's time, a monopoly was obvious. One company, one owner, one market. Today's system is way more complex. Today, ownership hides in layers, holding companies, subsidiaries, investment funds, joint ventures, strategic partnerships. On paper, they look separate, but the ties run deep. Now look at healthcare. America has some of the most advanced medicine on Earth, but also some of the most expensive. Insurance companies, hospitals, pharma firms, device manufacturers, a massive network. Sometimes patients can't even tell where the money goes. And that's where corporate scale shows up. Huge organizations, huge negotiating power, huge contracts, huge profits. So here's the question. Is there another way? Can you step outside the system? Truth is, not really. If you need a job, you need a bank. If you need internet, you need a provider. If you need a phone, you join an ecosystem. If you need healthcare, you enter a network. The modern world runs on connected systems. And that's Rockefeller's biggest lesson. You can't escape the system, but you can understand it. Because most people only see products. Some see companies, but very few see structures. And real power lives in the structure. Rockefeller's true legacy wasn't oil. It was this insight. Control the infrastructure. Control distribution. Control capital. Get scale. And you don't just build a company, you build a system. And systems outlive people. John D. Rockefeller died in 1937. But the Standard Oil story didn't end there. His ideas survived. His strategies survived. His structures survived. And in some form, you still see them in today's economy. But now the most important question remains. If this system is so powerful, what can a regular person do? Just stay a consumer? Fight back? Or is there a third path? A small-town kid becomes the most powerful businessman on Earth. That's not fiction. That's John D. Rockefeller. He built Standard Oil. He used vertical integration. He bought competitors, crushed them, or swallowed them whole. He created the trust structure. And when the government broke his company apart, his power didn't disappear. 100 years later, his playbook is still everywhere. But here's the biggest question. What should you take from this story? Is this the story of a villain? Is this the story of a genius? Or both? The truth, it's somewhere in the middle. Listen to his critics. He was a monopoly builder, a man who killed competition, who crushed rivals, who seized the market. Now, listen to his supporters. He was a visionary, a man who turned chaos into order, who made oil more efficient, who lowered prices, who built infrastructure. And that's why historians still argue about him. But here's the twist. Everyone agrees on one thing. Rockefeller changed the rules of business. He showed the power of scale. He proved that if a company gets big enough, it doesn't just play in the market. It shapes the market. And that's still true today. Look at the biggest companies now. Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Meta, Nvidia. Most people see products, but the real story isn't products. It's systems, infrastructure, networks, scale. Because history keeps showing us something. The most money doesn't go to the person who makes the product. It goes to the person who builds the platform, who builds the network, who controls distribution. Railroads, oil pipelines, electric grids, internet infrastructure, cloud computing. Every era has its infrastructure, and in every era, a few people control it. That's the pattern. And that's why Rockefeller's story still matters. So, what should a regular person do? Some say fight big companies. Some say support local businesses. Some say the government should regulate more. There's no easy answer. But here's one thing you can do. Understand. Awareness. Because most people only see transactions. Very few see systems. When you understand the system, you see how money flows, how power is built, where influence comes from, how the market really works. That knowledge sets you apart. Rockefeller once said, "Competition is a sin." People call it arrogance. People call it greed. But to him, competition was temporary. He believed every industry ends in consolidation. The strongest player gets the biggest. The rest fall behind. You can agree with him. You can disagree. But look at the last 150 years. Oil, railroads, steel, cars, banking, tech, social media, cloud computing. The same pattern shows up everywhere. First hundreds of players, then dozens, then a few giants, then dominance, then new challengers. And the cycle starts again. That's why Rockefeller wasn't just a man, he was a turning point. A moment that changed corporate America, and maybe the world. Standard Oil doesn't exist today. But its impact does. Rockefeller isn't alive, but his strategies are. The world is digital now. But the core structures of power, you can still recognize them. And that's the biggest lesson of this whole story. You need to understand the system. Because if you don't understand the system, you just live inside it. But when you do understand it, you start seeing things differently. You see the story behind the headlines. You see the networks behind the products. You see the structures behind the brands. And once you see that, the world never looks the same. John D. Rockefeller helped build a model 150 years ago, and its echo is still here today. The question isn't if he was right or wrong. The question is, do you recognize the system you live in? Because in the end, power is always where most people aren't looking. And maybe that's Rockefeller's real legacy. Not a company, not an oil empire, but a system. A system whose story isn't over. And maybe it never will be. Pause. Now here's what changes for you. 150 years later, you're living in that system. But now you have something most people don't. Awareness, understanding. You know how the system works. You can see where money starts and where it ends up.